So here we are to talk about it a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, today, what we're talking about is the GLP-1, right? So the GLP-1, extremely popular. I think they said something like 30% of America right now is on some form of GLP-1, which is insane.
Wow. Yeah, I was not aware of that.
Yeah, we're on extremely, yeah. So, and it's hard to track because some of are on compounds, some are on like mixtures. So this is a total estimate. But with it being so popular, we are getting more and more questions about it. And so today we're going to spend some time talking about it, but I think mainly from like an expectation. Like if you went to your doctor or somebody, you're asking, should I get on this medication? We have some thoughts, we have some ideas, we have some science to back up our thoughts, but I think the best thing is to really set the expectation of what is this tool that you're getting.
So I think the word that you just used there, tool, is a very good one to use because it's not... A lot of people are looking at these medications as solutions to the problem or cures for the condition. And I don't think that that's the best way to look at them because what we see after people come off of them is that a lot of times the weight is regained,
right?
And the A1Cs go back up if you're doing it for diabetes or weight loss. So it's obviously not solving the problem that led to it. It's just kind of fixing the problem while you're on it. And so tool is a very good word to use for that. And so I think what you talked about with setting expectations, I think something that people need to think about is what is the long-term goal?
Correct.
And you kind of have two solutions or two options there. It's, do you want to be on this forever? And if that's the case, okay. That can be very expensive or it can't be, depending on, insurance and, which one you're taking, that kind of stuff. The other option is you use it while you're, getting the weight off, and then you come off of it at some point.
Right.
And, so we need to know, what's our long-term goal? Do we want to be on this forever or do we want to come off of it? And what does that look like?
Exactly. And so exactly. So I think today, if we set the expectation, so again, we're not trying to tell you, yay, take it, don't take it.
Right.
But what we're trying to tell you is there is risk and benefit with this tool. And if you use it as a solution, as the end all be all, this is not going to work for you. Right. Now, I think right now, this is a good part to kind of put our kind of thoughts on this medicine, take the thought of like, this is cheating, this is, not fair, this is some kind of, whatever. Take that out of your vocabulary because that's not our view of these medications at all. But we also know it has really powerful effects, but there's also limitations on what it can do, especially for the long term. And again, for today's podcast, this is probably targeted for the person that maybe has this thought of, okay, I'm just going to use this as a start, and then I plan on coming off in the next 2-3 years. And if that's your view, that's great. That means these expectations need to be set so you understand what you need to do to make sure that that's a successful transition versus right now, I think it's like 95% of people will gain their weight back when they stop, which is very frustrating to spend, $20,000 on a drug for 2 years just to be right back to where you are, a year later.
Yeah. And so it's not really a question of if at this point, like if you will regain the weight, it's more of a how long is it going to take you to do it, and when does that process start? Because like you said, the majority of people who implement the medication and then come off of it will regain the weight if they haven't put things in place to help them maintain the weight that they've lost.
Yep.
And so what I'm saying by that is that you have to make some sort of lifestyle, if you want to call it lifestyle changes, if you want to call it behavioral changes, and we've had plenty of conversations about this, there has to be something there that will maintain the weight loss once you come off the medication. Otherwise, it's just going to be as successful as any other diet plan that you've ever gotten on that allowed you to lose weight while you were on it. And then as soon as you come off of it, you regain the weight, right? And we spend a lot of time talking about why that's the case. Why do we regain the weight afterwards? And so what you need to think about when you are not planning on being on these things long term is, I'm still going to need to do the things that I would have had to do otherwise to keep the weight off long term. The medication is going to help me to get there, maybe faster. And we can talk about the benefits of that versus the drawbacks of that. But you're still going to have to do some sort of lifestyle or behavioral change in the long term to make sure that you are successful in keeping the weight off long term.
Exactly. And so today, if you're listening to this podcast, you want to listen to the end, because I kind of put those things into 3 big bullet points. So you want to say 3 things that you want to do to be successful at keeping the weight off.
Okay.
Yes. I did not tell you this though. So.
No, you didn't.
Yeah. So
this is good though, because it puts, keeps me on my toes.
Yeah. Well, so this is actually a good time. I think I want to segue a little bit on the mechanism of action. Right? Okay. How does this drug work? And I broke it into 2 categories. There is the mechanical side where it slows things down, sends it, but then there's a reward side. And I think we could talk about both.
So are we going to, we're specifically talking about weight loss then?
Correct. So sorry. This is probably more targeted for not so much the diabetics who are needing this for diabetes, but specifically for people who are trying to lose weight on this medication.
Yeah, okay. Because it's the same medication and it interacts in both ways,
right?
Directly and kind of indirectly. But for weight loss, it happens a few different things. So you naturally produce GLP-1 when you eat. And it's produced in the intestines, and it interacts with the vagus nerve, and that sends signals up to the brain that then say, hey, we've eaten, we need to start feeling full. And there's all kinds of signals that go from the gut to the brain through the vagus nerve. And so one of the ways that it works is slowing down gastric emptying. So that means slowing down the process that food, exits your stomach and goes into the intestines. So you keep food on your stomach longer, and so you just feel full longer, and that makes you not get hungry as frequently. So you just eat less food, right? So, it's going to come down to you just eat less food. That's what it's making you do. But it does that by the mechanical aspect, by slowing down your digestive tract, the passage of food through your stomach. And the way that it interacts in the brain is that it sends those signals up to a specific area that then sends the GLP-1 signals out to other parts of the brain. Specifically, we talked about the hypothalamus as this control center for appetite, hunger, thirst, all that kind of stuff. And so it acts on GLP-1 receptors there to reduce your appetite.
Right.
And then in other places, it sends out signals that suppress other neurotransmitters and hormones, and we can talk about that a little bit more in depth later. But essentially, it's stimulating this pathway that reduces your appetite and reduces the signaling that makes you seek out more food to make you just stop eating.
Exactly.
And so I've researched this a whole lot more since maybe our last conversation on it. But what I've basically come to realize is that the GLP-1 system, this whole pathway from the intestines up the vagus nerve through the brain, all of these things happen automatically under normal circumstances.
Right.
And that's good, because that prevents you from overeating and prevents you from seeking out, highly pleasurable foods that make you, overeat and gain weight. The problem is these systems were not built to handle the food environment that we currently live in. And so we talk about things like hyperpalatability and supranormal stimuli, which are foods that are significantly more delicious than anything that we would ever encounter in nature, right? And so it's just more powerful than our brains can deal with. And so we overeat. And so what the GLP-1s, like the Ozempics, Wegovy's, Zepbounds, those things are doing is they're just bolstering that system to boost its effectiveness, which then makes it easier to combat the food environment we live in, to where we're actually operating the way that we're supposed to, which is fascinating.
Exactly. Well, like I said, because of this action, most people, if they have side effects, it's like, I'm constipated, I'm getting nauseous, right? Because the stomach feels fuller. But I like what you said there, Michael. This thing doesn't touch metabolism. It doesn't touch anything like that. It purely deals with food coming in. It's a calorie inside that it's working on. And it works very, very well, because again, well. You have patients that will say, when I'm on this, I stop snacking all the time. When I'm on this, at 8 p.m. at night, I used to eat a giant bowl of cereal, Lucky Charms. I stopped doing that. And obviously, if you start taking away 500 calories, 1,500 calories. Some people have taken away like 2,000 calories of what they're eating. The weight's going to come off.
Yeah. And one of the things that I continue to hear is the way that it's worded. People say, food noise. It's you go through your day and it's like you're just constantly thinking about food. And when you see like when you're exposed to certain food, like you see snacks on the table, you don't want to pay attention to that, but your brain is just like, yo, you should go get one of those snacks. And you just can't stop thinking about it, right? And so a lot of people will say that on these medications, the food noise is shut out, like they don't hear it. And something else that happens that was kind of an unexpected thing is that not only do you see weight loss, but you start seeing people quit smoking, people quit drinking, people with gambling addictions stop gambling. And so these are all things that we've started to see over and over and over again on people with these GLP-1 medications, is that these addictive behaviors start to get reduced. Right. And so my thoughts on it was, well, there has to be some interaction with like this dopamine reward system in the brain that is reducing people's, tendency to go seek out these rewards. Right. And that's actually what's happening. And it's a system that's there to kind of cause you to seek out rewards that are beneficial to you. They're not super beneficial to us now, but there's a part of the brain, that GLP-1 pathway, like reduces it so that we don't overeat and go seeking more if we're already full.
Correct.
And so with these GLP-1s, it's like you're not getting these huge dopamine spikes that are driving these cravings all the time. And so that dopamine spike occurs when you see a food that you really, really want to eat, right? That happens. It makes you just think about it constantly until you finally do it. And then you get that good feeling that's associated with obtaining the reward.
Right.
And so if you don't get this big dopamine spike, it's not going to cause you to go seeking this reward, because you're just not going to want it. And so that's what it's doing. There's a part of the brain it goes to, and it suppresses dopamine production. So you don't get these huge spikes that cause you to go looking for food, which is just amazing to me.
Absolutely.
That's part of the system that's built in, and we just live in a world that says, I don't care about that.
That's right.
Eat these Oreos.
So true. Well, and like you said, this is the part that this is maybe kind of related, but we as human beings are going to do things that give us reward, right? The more reward, the more we're going to do. And food has been designed forever to be rewarding to us, because that's how human race survived. Yeah. Right. We got to hunt. If we don't eat, we die. If we don't reproduce, we die. Right. And so those two things have really, really high rewards, and that's what drive us as human beings to do it. Well, the GLP-1 pathway, one of the, I guess, side pathways, it lowers the reward. And so maybe back in the day, that gigantic bowl of Cinnamon Toast Crunch tastes really, really good. On this medicine, it doesn't taste quite as good. Right.
The reward is diminished, and it just kind of, you're just like, eh.
Exactly. Yeah, you're like, I'm not going to go waste my time to go to Kroger to buy an extra big box, because the reward is not worth it. And hence, that helps.
You know what's interesting is that has a little bit to do with it's a thing called sensory specific satiety. It's a long 3-word thing with S's and but basically as you eat a specific food, the more of it that you eat, the less good it is. And in normal circumstances, like if you eat just kale, you're going to eventually just get tired of eating kale.
Correct.
Right? One of the things that we do, though, is we pair all of our foods with different sensory sensations. So we'll have something sweet and have something salty, and our brain will always be resetting its sensory experience based on the foods we're eating. And so part of that dopamine suppression is based on that. And so you're talking about eating the Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and it's really, really good, but what's normally happening is you're doing that, and maybe you're drinking something else or like a coffee, and so it's resetting that, and so you just continually get this reward from it. Well, this is strengthening that system that basically causes it to become less rewarding as you eat, so you just get tired of eating it faster and you stop.
Right.
So portion sizes tend to shrink by default, because it's not that you're getting full.
Right.
I mean, you probably are, but you're also just getting tired of eating it. Or your brain is like, you just don't want to eat it anymore.
Exactly. So to kind of recap everything we just said, the main mechanism of weight loss with this medicine is a calorie in issue, right? So you essentially, we eat too much food. And so if we reduce the food that comes in, the weight usually will go down. And again, it reduces reward. So it helps with snack seeking behavior, standing at the checkout line, they have all these Reese's Pieces standing there. You're like, I'm just going to grab this because there's a reward with Reese's Pieces. It dumbs that down so you don't start doing that. Okay. Now, on the flip side, though, there are some problems with this. So, and one of the biggest one, and this is why when we talk about 3 ways to make sure you're successful in coming off, is the calorie restriction that you lose. So some people lose a significant amount of calories. I mean, I've had a patient, he was eating 3,500 calories a day, dropped to 700. So he lost like 30 pounds in a month. The problem is you lose muscle.
A lot.
That's a problem. That's a big problem, because what we realize now is most of our metabolism, we talked about in our past video, if you haven't seen it, basal metabolic rate has a lot to do with how much muscle you carry around.
It's a big component of it, yeah.
Right. And so if all of a sudden your body lost, 2,000 calories a day of input, the first thing the body's going to start wondering is, do I need to keep this muscle or not? Because it's expensive to keep. Yeah. Right. And if we don't, because we're not moving, we're not exercising, we're not weight training or whatever, the brain's going to be like, get rid of muscle, which we've also seen a lot with this medication, which is unfortunately a problem in the long term.
Yeah. And you see videos of people that are like, yeah, I used this drug and then, lost all this weight. Now I have osteopenia or osteoporosis or whatever it is. Because if you lose that much muscle attaches to bone. If your muscles are gone, your bone doesn't have any tension to keep it strong. So they start to weaken as well. And so these are all downstream effects. And to be honest with you, that has nothing to do with the medication.
Correct.
Any weight loss that is created by a calorie deficit that big, regardless of the method, will result in exactly the same problems. The difference is, if we were to create, you said the guy went from, I'm going to simplify the math just because, 3,500 calories down to, we'll say 1,000, right? It's a 2,500 calorie deficit. If you do that to anyone, they're going to lose the same amount of weight.
Correct.
The difference is with the GLP-1s, they basically turn off the defense mechanism in the brain.
Correct.
That tells because normally in those types of situations, your brain would be like, hey, we're dying slow. Let's pump the brakes. And your defense mechanism kicks in and you get so fed up with the diet, you feel so bad and your hunger is so that you give up the diet long before you run into those problems.
Exactly.
Right. With GLP-1s, that doesn't happen. So you don't get tired of what you're doing. You don't feel terrible on it. You just keep going long before or like further than you could do it without the medication.
Absolutely.
And so people are attributing things like Ozempic face and the muscular, atrophy and the bone mineral loss to these medications, but that's not necessarily the case. It's just that we're able to go a lot more extreme than we normally would.
Correct. I mean, yeah, back in the day, say 200 years ago, when we went through a famine, this is exactly what would happen, right? Crops don't grow well. People stop eating. Of course, in third world countries, people still die. I mean, they'll die from starvation because there's nothing they can do to stop it from happening. Obviously, the drug is essentially trying to block the signals that is telling our bodies to survive. Yeah. Like, hey, go find food, go hunt for food, because that's a drastic drop, but the medicine is blocking that, which is great. But then the body's like, well, then let's start burning up muscle, because muscle costs a lot of money to upkeep. So let's get rid of that. Let's start cutting it. And we'll have some patients that, let's say they lose 50 pounds, 50 will be fat. 25 will be fat, but 25 will be muscle and bone. Yeah.
And so at the end result of that is that you end up worse off than when you started.
Correct.
And the reason that you lose muscle, especially like skeletal muscle, arms, legs, stuff like that, is you really don't need a lot of that to just be alive.
Correct.
And so if your body has to choose, what do I need to prioritize? It's going to get rid of that and prioritize moving that protein, because at a certain point, you're going to be eating so few calories that you can't meet the protein needs that your body, requires. And your heart is a muscle.
Correct.
Your organs are built of protein, and they have to function, right? If they don't function, you don't function.
Right.
if your arm doesn't move or doesn't work, you are fine. Like from a am I alive standpoint, obviously quality of life, but hey, that's not what we're talking about here.
Right.
So your body will literally sacrifice everything from the waist down and from the shoulder out to make sure that your heart is pumping and your organs are moving things around.
Right.
Like, so you could, atrophy your arms and legs down to nothing and still be fine. And so your body does that because your heart is your most important muscle. So you need to be able to eat enough food and enough protein to spare that. And you also need to work them.
Correct.
Because your body is not going to keep something that it doesn't feel like it needs.
Exactly.
And so if you're working your muscles, your body's going to say, hey, I must need these because I'm experiencing this obstacle.
Right.
Called resistance, enough to where I need to keep some of this.
Correct. So that brings us to our very first tip of making sure how to be successful when you come off the medicine that is you need to protect the muscles.
Yeah.
Whether that's strength training, whether that's push-up, that's pull-ups. Walking probably isn't going to be enough. We need something to stimulate muscle growth. And so this is maybe a myth that I've heard a lot of people when they'll say something like, well, once I get the weight down, then I'll start exercising. That has failed more times than I've heard. So, putting this here, it's probably better for you to maybe start some type of exercise regimen first, get that as a habit, and then start the medication. Because like you said, if we don't preserve the muscle, sooner or later, the calorie, like your metabolism will match the calorie intake, right? So if you're only eating 1,000 calories a day, the muscle mass loss will end up making you only burn 1,000 a day. At which point, if you even eat 1,500, which is still very low, you're going to gain because you don't have any more muscle to burn.
Right.
Right. So this is tip number one. You've got to strength train somehow.
Yeah, and we'll say resistance training because I think when we say strength training, people think like weightlifting, which is not necessarily the case. You can do resistance training with gravity.
Right.
Walking is really not going to cut it. We're built for walking.
Right.
That, it's the thing that we do. We get too efficient at it. And so also we've talked about, how many calories you burn walking. It's on average about 100 calories per mile. Like how much time you got,
Right.
If your diet is that bad, it's not going to be, enough for very long. And so it's also not going to stimulate that muscle growth. So you need to be doing some sort of resistance, and that can be push-ups, it can be body weight squats. Swimming in a pool is resistance because it's water is a lot thicker than air to move through.
Right.
So it requires a lot more muscle. I think the sorest I've ever been in my entire life was after I went scuba diving, because believe it or not, moving through water it's really hard when you're not used to it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, you can do weightlifting. You can use exercise bands. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do that count as resistance training that isn't weightlifting, which I feel like a lot of people are, I don't want to say scared of it, but intimidated by it maybe. And they shouldn't be,
right?
Because it is so awesome to do for your health. But any form of resistance training is definitely recommended.
Absolutely. So that's, again, to combat one of the problems of the drug, we have to do the exact opposite, right? And like you said, you don't have to go to the gym, because I think some people, maybe not, I don't say use that excuse, but the idea there's an obstacle where I got to get in a car, change clothes, drive somewhere, not know exactly what I'm doing, feel kind of dumb, and they take that out. You can do push-ups in your living room with Netflix on. Like whatever it takes to stimulate muscle, that's going to help you become successful. The second problem that I've seen a lot is, and believe it or not, and we talked about this, you can eat past the medication. So, right. So, and we've seen this a lot. Patients who've been on this medicine for a year and a half, 2 years. Again, the medicine only blocks the appetite, like the calories coming in. So if you still eat Sonic, you just eat less Sonic, you're going to lose weight. But if you keep eating Sonic, which is a hyper palatable, delicious food with a lot of calories and no nutrients, after a while, you can eat so much Sonic that you will push past what the medicine is doing. So now you're just paying money for a medicine and you're still gaining weight.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this earlier today, because a lot of our eating habits are just that, habits, and it's not necessarily because we're hungry, and a lot of times we're not paying attention to those signals anyway, and so we eat because it's time to eat, or we eat because we're bored, and If you have such strong habits where you eat the same thing every day and you eat at the same time every day, you can take these medications and it'll, help with the, I guess, natural systems you have in place to combat those things. But if your conscious effort to eat this food at this time every day is so strongly ingrained in your routine, you're not going to lose weight because you're not letting your body do what it's trying to do.
Correct.
You're, like you said, eating past the medication. And so it really does come down to your habits too. You got to look at what you're doing and what your food choices are and why are you eating.
Correct.
So that's that mindfulness. And I was thinking about mindfulness, and we talk about focus and attention being a finite resource. Willpower is in there too with that. And so mindfulness is the practice of taking your conscious effort and applying it to where you would normally just autopilot through a decision and then choosing to do otherwise.
Correct.
But if you don't act on that, it's just you're exhausting yourself for no reason.
Exactly.
So if we're going to be mindful, we have to follow through with that.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think this medicine will give you an opposite. Number 2, this medicine will give you an opportunity to use that mindfulness where you didn't have it before. Meaning, back in the day, so I had a patient today, actually, and he was telling, he had lost about 15 pounds on the medicine. His diabetes is much better. And I was like, so what have you learned? And he has learned that it is only everything that he's experiencing, all the success he's had is because he is not eating as much food as he was before, which to him was actually really empowering because he tells me now, okay, so if I just keep not eating this stuff, I can be successful. And like I said, what happened with the medicine was it gave his brain a second to be like, why do I have to eat this Reese's Pieces?
Yeah.
Right? Because, you're working, you're on a computer, you're just popping Reese's Pieces over and over. The medicine cuts that down so you don't eat anymore, you start losing weight. It gives your brain a second to tie that together. Like, oh, if I don't eat these Reese's Pieces, I'm not going to get my sugar and weight all jacked up. And so taking these time, let's say you're on the medicine for 6 months, 8 months, a year, 2 years, whatever, time period you want to use, you do want to take advantage of that block of food noise to really evaluate what you're actually putting in your mouth.
Yeah.
Right. Some people will start using portion control. Like, okay, I'm still going to eat at, Mama Hamil's, but I'm just going to eat a lot less. Some people will take this time and be like, you know what? Let me use more chicken breast. That's lower, fat version. Let me start getting changing some of the foods, the chips, the snack foods. Just using this opportunity to pay attention to the habits that you've built and using these 6 months when you have this food noise out to get rid of some of those habits can actually help you become successful at keeping the weight off if you decide to come off the medication.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to somebody today who, when we talk about habits, we've spent time talking about environmental design. And they were on medication and they had a lot of success with it. And then they were called back into the office. So when they were working at home, the dose they were on was great. It was perfect for what they needed. They started losing weight. Everything was going well. They got called back into the office and now their daily food environment changed and the medicine stopped being as effective because now they were exposed to a lot more tempting food choices and they didn't have the healthy snacks that they normally had. And so our conversation, we talked about the potential to need to increase the dose maybe to counter the environmental change, but also to take what was successful about the previous environment and try to apply that to the new environment.
Right.
So bringing healthy snacks from home, bringing healthier meals from home and like putting them in the refrigerator and kind of avoiding the cafeteria and stuff like that. And so those kinds of things go a long way.
Yeah. Perfect. Actually, that was number 3, Michael. You just pulled it out, right? So you already knew it. Your environment plays a gigantic role in our habits. The reason I was thinking that, so I have some patients here, again, they're trying really, really hard to lose weight. Like they work at Nissan, can't lose weight, all stuck, right? They get sent to Japan for like 2 months and they all come down like 20 pounds. I come back and I'm like, did you try to lose weight there? And they're like, no, I was not trying. But the environment, you had to walk 15,000 steps a day, up and down stairs, you had your food choices are different, right? So if you get stressed out here, you can swing by Wendy's, get a double and it's 1,200 calories. Over there, you go downstairs, there's ramen bowls, but the bowls are usually like broth and vegetables with very little. And so they'll, eat a bunch of, ramen and it being like 700 calories, right? So the environment made it a lot easier for them to not have to think about what they're doing, like not use their willpower resources constantly. Guys, we live in the South. Unfortunately, we don't have that environment here. Like, it's not built in like by society, so you have to build it yourself.
Yeah, if you want the best representation of how little our society prioritizes walking, where are the sidewalks, bro?
Exactly.
Where are they?
Yeah.
You know, I lived in Maryland, and everywhere you went, it was sidewalks. If you were in town, there were sidewalks.
Yeah.
Every street.
Yeah.
And here it's like you can go into neighborhoods, and there are no sidewalks in the neighborhoods. I got lucky and found a house in a neighborhood with sidewalks, but it's one of the few. Now, I think that might be more common now as we've kind of drifted towards more health conscious like building.
Right.
But yeah, for the longest time, I didn't see a neighborhood with sidewalks ever.
Correct. Yeah.
Growing up.
Yeah. And even here, right? Like if I'm out there walking on a sidewalk or going for a walk on our track, a beautiful track, if you want to use it, Blue Health Baptist has a great one, right? But I'm walking because I want to. In Japan, you're walking because you have to, right? Right. So it is another layer that you have to add in. But again, that's just, I tell people like, it is what it is, right? So we do have to, again, you've got 6 months on this drug, you've got a year, you've decided to invest, $10,000 in this drug, which again is not cheap. Use it to adjust your environment so that when you come off, the environment now makes it a lot easier for you to continue to do those things that made you successful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, those are the three that I have. Any final thoughts, Michael, that you have?
I think when these medications first came out, and you mentioned this like from the get-go, that a lot of people will look at it as a form of cheating. And I think there's a lot of fitness influencers, or there's a lot of people in my line of work as a dietitian or a health coach. And I know there are a lot of individuals who have lost weight in the past that look at it that way. And I may or may not have viewed them that way at first, but now I don't stigmatize them. And I think a lot of people still, even when they use them, feel like there's this stigma that they're going to be judged for using them, because a lot of people will take them, and I'll know that they're on it because I have access to medical records. I can see, and they won't mention it at all. At all. They want to admit that they're on them. And I'm like, that there's no shame in using these to get healthy.
Right.
Like, that's what we're here to do, and that's what we want for you, is to be healthy.
Right.
And if we can use this as a tool to get you healthy, then let's use it. If it's right for you. It's it's not going to be right for everybody, but but we're also here to help you do all the other things too. So we got to look at the big picture. So for people that are thinking about it, or who are, I don't know, there's nothing wrong with using them if they're right for you. Right. The other thing is, for people that have lost weight the right way, I did without medication, but somebody else using medication to get healthy and lose weight does not take away from the success that I had losing weight. It doesn't take the success that you have away from your weight loss.
Right.
What they do does not affect what you did.
Correct.
It doesn't matter. So why are you upset about what they're doing?
Right. Like,
they're trying to get healthy. Let them get healthy.
Exactly.
Right. So for the people that are thinking about it, go for it. If it's right for you, talk to your doctor about it. For the people that lost weight and think it's cheating, get over yourself, man. Sorry to be blunt like that, but it's,
correct.
It's not worth the energy for you to expend being resentful of other people's success. Let people get healthy.
Yeah. And I think, like I said, what you were saying before, our job here is, of course, we want you to have all the tools. There are tools out there. We also want to make sure you understand the expectations of, like, if you just use it as, this is just my miracle cure and it's going to fix everything, and we stop it in a year, we're going to be sorely disappointed, because it's all going to be back to
and furthering that point, anybody that tries to sell you something using that terminology of, man, this is going to be the final, it's the solution that's going to fix all you, it's probably not.
Never.
It's never the way it's promoted. So
exactly.
Let's not look at this the same way.
Yep. All right. Well, Michael, thanks. That's a great episode. We'll get it on, and hopefully we'll have more coming down the pipeline.
Hopefully so. Yeah. This was really fun. I'm glad we were back doing it.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Michael.
See you next time.